Open your eyes, tell me what you see.
Niko na watoto watatu, mmoja anaitwa Vivian, ndio huyu mkubwa, mwingine ni Eunice, na huyu ni Brian. Mimi ni positive na mzee wangu si positive, ako negative. Nafanya kazi ya nyumba, nikanunua mashini, kwa nashona sweta. Nikaendelea na biashara tu vizuri, na ikafika siku moja nikagonjeka sana. Nilikuwa paralyzed side moja, hata ingawaje nasikia na masikio moja. Bill ya kutoka kwa hospitali sasa ikawa ni shida. Ilibidi sasa niuze hiyo mashini ili initoe kwa hospitali, kwa sababu mzee wangu ilikuwa tu kibarua. Sasa huyu mtoto mwingine Brian, huyu tulipata kama tuko positive. Sasa tulimpata na hiyo shida. Halali, usiku tu miguu zinauma nini. Saa nyingine unasikia tu tumbo, anya hawezi lala, tumbo, anya inakoroga tu tumbo, ni kama anya tumbo inamuasha kabisa. Na unaona macho yake ina change kuwa yellow. Nilijaribu kumpeleka follow up check tuone kama anaweza pata hiyo virusi, lakini vizuri hakupata hiyo virusi. Saa nyingine nikienda hospitali wanamlaza, lakini most wanamuongezanga damu. Kwa mwaka unaweza muongeza mara 3. Najua maybe damu imekosekana. Sasa nilikuwa nafikiri vile wamemdunga shindano nitakuja kama mikono zimebadilika. Kupeleka Mbagathi kumpima akakuta tena kuna sickle cell. Najua tena inatakana tena niwe na chakula at least ya kuboost damu. Inaweza fika wakati hata sina. Sasa ingine ni stress. Niko stress kwa sababu mimi mwenyewe ni stress, kliniki huko, watoto huko. Sasa saa ingine inanipatia stress.
I'm particularly excited to be recording an African CD, so this is a new venture for me and really enjoying working with some African musicians. The focus of the CD is to particularly highlight the situation for the ladies in a Kipepeo card project, which I've now been involved in for just over 2 years, and just real heart for what their fellow mothers. I'm a mother of 3 children, and I've gotten to know these mothers who contend with so much more than I've ever had to. What they're up against just to get through each day, to be able to pay their rent, to be able to feed their children, to be able to pay their school fees, which probably are their 3 main concerns from day to day, is to survive and be able to cover the expenses for those things. There is so much that we take for granted, and through the Kipepeo CD, I'm hoping that firstly the songs will highlight the plight of these ladies, but also that eventually this will also raise funds. Not only raise the awareness, but all of the proceeds from the CD will actually go back into feeding into this project, where we're seeking to empower women with a sense of hope and a hope for the future, which goes well beyond living in an informal settlement.
And so I praise you, Lord. I praise you, Lord, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made.
Rachel Williams is the lady who established the project, and she's a British lady who, something like 3 months after she'd established the project, she and her family unexpectedly then had to move to Australia.
Rachel Williams was a missionary's wife, and through her engagement with the slum community in Kibera, she identified women from difficult backgrounds whom she felt the need to empower so that they could lead sustainable lives, they could be able to take care of their families. She adopted what we call the Samaritan strategy, which is a form of entrepreneurial skills interfused with Christian values. Of course, coming from that difficult background, many of them had given up hope and thought, God had abandoned them. Then she trained the ladies in making the cards, and they came up with different designs and just tried to perfect the skills of making a good card. Then while she was doing this, she was approaching her friends, fellow missionaries, friends in Kenya, friends in Australia, the UK, just to help her create a market for these cards, because unless they were sold, then the women won't get anything. And since she was avoiding the mentality of handouts, so she was encouraging them to earn from the work of their hands.
3 years ago, I simply went along to the project, and I would sit with the ladies and I would just help them make the cards. It was lovely just to simply build that relationship with them. 12 months into spending time with them, by then I had gotten to know the UK director, Rachel Bourne, who has been doing a wonderful job with the project for quite a number of years now.
Really want to expand and get to a point where we can incorporate more, not just more women into the program, but more partners, whereby we'd have a variety of skills to have a pool base where we can draw from whenever we need any intervention. That's why we are hoping in the next year or two that we'll have raised enough funds or found partners who will help us actualize that. See Kipepeo move to the next level, where we just stop being subsistence to a more enduring, sustainable enterprise.
For I am fearfully and wonderfully made.
Siku ya kwanza mimi kugonjeka ilikuwa siku yenye nilianguka kwa shule. Sasa unajua mimi sikuwa napenda kucheza, kwa sababu hata kukimbia nilikuwa nakimbia kidogo nasikia nini nimechoka. Nilipelekwa Kenyatta nikakuwa admitted. Sasa ndio daktari akakuja akaambia mama macho yangu haikai vizuri, ndio wakanipima wakaona niko na sickle cell.
Na tena huyu msichana nilitoa nyumbani, nilikuwa naona kama ni nutrition, kama hana malishi bora. Lakini sasa vile naangalia kidogo mguu inavunjika, nini inavunjika, nikaona siwezi kaa na mtoto hivi, lazima nimpeleke hospitali. Hata jana nilikuwa hospitali wakaniambia tena yako na sickle cell. Sasa Vivian ndio ako sawa kwa sababu hana ugonjwa yoyote, na Eunice ako na sickle cell, Brian ako na sickle cell. Sasa hivyo ndio tunakaa, lakini ile kitu tunatumainia Mungu.
When she came in, in fact, initially she couldn't work because the stress, the psychological trauma, the physical had really taken a toll on her, that she would go into fits, just blackouts and fits. And so the program's first initiative was more taking care of her psychosocial aspect. So it was more of counseling, taking her to hospital, the kids, making sure they get drugs and get to a point where they are stable enough that she can even leave them alone at home and come to work.
The deep grief of, firstly, the childbearing, the mortality rate is high in Kibera. And so I think there is that deep grief. I think their deepest frustration and their deepest struggle is in relation to their children. Because any mother's heart wants the best for their children, and when they're unable to get enough money to pay, firstly, to feed their children, I mean, that's heartbreaking. There's a deep craving for their children to be educated so that they actually can have a life beyond this informal settlement in Kibera that they live in. So to not be able to pay their school fees, which which gives a sense of hope for their children in the future. There's a grief that they can't offer this to their children. And then when your child is sick and you can't even afford to take them to hospital, probably my heart aches most when my children are struggling with illness. But again, I can go to the hospital, I can go to the doctor. These women, they might have access to a doctor and a hospital, but they simply can't afford it. I look at someone like Alice who has to take her son for blood transfusions. And I mean, that's an extreme procedure for any child to go through. And the grief of watching her child go through that, and also the struggle to find the funding for that. And at times simply not doing it because she can't do it. I can only begin to imagine what that week where her son desperately needs a blood transfusion and she's not been able to afford it must look like. I guess that's a grief that in one sense only a mother can really empathise with. Now, I say empathise, but I've not had to go through it. And so I only walk this journey with the women second hand because I don't live through this, but my mother heart just goes out to them as they seek to care for the children as much as I would want to care for mine.
Fly, Kipepeo. Fly, Kipepeo.
Ile niliingia Kipepeo, niliona ilinisaidia sana. Sasa kushona ndio ilikuwa talenti yangu. Unajua tunalipanga kulingana na vile umetengeneza kadi. Saa nyingine napeleka mtoto kliniki, mimi mwenyewe naenda kliniki, sioni kama anafanya vizuri. Most napatanga kama 5,000.
Kipepeo's core business main objective is to get that wholesome woman who is spiritually, mentally, physically, socially and economically able to move on with her life. Our name Kipepeo is from a butterfly, but until it opens its wings, you can't see all these beautiful colors. Because of having been beaten down by so many life experiences, they have not grown to their full potential, showing their colors. And so slowly by slowly, we work with them and encourage them to achieve that which is already endowed in them.
For I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I'm fearfully and wonderfully made.
There's a number of things I've done with the CD. I've asked the women if I could use their children to actually sing on the CD. And I guess effectively we're forming our very first Kipepeo children's choir. The songs that they have sung on the CD are very specifically singing about the hope that they have. These women have amazing hope considering their circumstances. The second thing I'm hoping is that proceeds from the sales of the CD will all come back into actually supporting further development of this project.
Open your eyes, tell me what you see.